Me say boom boom boom, now everybody say way-oh, way-oh.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the latest channel. My name is Ross, and for today I'll be your host for the first ever F1 show. Now, in the first 6 months of my channel, I've been trying to fit in a lot of different types of F1 videos, and I've been thinking, how do I get out all this content to you guys as quickly as possible? So that is why I've created this lovely jam-packed 20-minute show. Coming up every week, we'll be talking about the latest gossip, what's going on in silly season, as well as some of you guys' favourite topics like what ifs, top 10s and tier rankings. Before each episode, we'll finish off with a little bit of Twitter trash. Now, I hope you guys do enjoy this. I'm really excited to be starting this new chapter. I think this can be an awesome concept. Other than that, I hope you enjoy, and let's dive in. Welcome then, ladies and gentlemen, to the F1 show. To kick off this week's episode, we begin with the talk of the town. And coming up, we have two of the most interesting questions currently in the racing sport. First of all, the F1 calendar. Never before has it been changed like it has in 2020. Could we see invitational events become a common thing in the future? And then secondly, something that always seems to be common, what is going on at Haas and who will be driving for them in next year's season? There's currently 10 men on the list. We're going to whittle it down and find out our top 2 men we predict will be sitting in those seats. But first, it's time to talk about the calendar. So, this year, due to COVID, we've had a changed calendar. Races that haven't been used ever before, or maybe we haven't seen in decades, are back for the first time in a long time. And personally, I'm all for it. I think it has been awesome to see these old classic tracks that haven't been used in so long return and bring out what so far has been awesome races. Mugello was certainly exciting, and due to teams not really knowing as much and having as much data, they're kept on their toes and we get way more exciting racing and stranger results than we see in the normal Grand Prix. So for that reason, I'm all for it becoming commonplace. Here is my thoughts. Rather than having a classic 22 race season, though 22 race hasn't been classic for very long, we change it. We have 16 standard races followed by 6 invitational events. All this is set up by continent so that no set of area is getting too many Grand Prix. As you know, the likes of Asia are starting to grow, with Hanoi the latest addition over the last decade, as we've seen the likes of Bahrain, China, Singapore, all been added in the 21st century. So how do you set it up? You have 8 European Grand Prix, 5 Asian Grand Prix and 3 American Grand Prix. Then you throw in 2 additional invitational European races, 2 invitational Asian Grand Prix, plus an invitational Americas, which to clarify is North America and South America, added to finally an invitational African event. I reckon somewhere like in South Africa or in Egypt or maybe in Morocco, which has hosted races in the past, would be a cool place to go back to as a very alternative location where the cars would be under a lot of pressure due to the heat, adding another dynamic to the racing. It would be tough, it would be difficult on drivers, but god damn, it could make for some interesting results. But before we go any further, first of all, go subscribe to the channel. I want to hit 100 subs by the end of October, and your support is needed. We're 25 away, so go press that red button to make sure we hit it as soon as possible. And also, go leave your thoughts down below. I want to know what you think. I'll leave comments down below as well. So if you do stick a comment, I'll do one as well. And here is my, before we move on to our second question, suggested setup for the 2021 season. We obviously have these 6 invitational events, which could be announced during the Christmas off-season period, adding a little more excitement to the already fascinating silly season. But here's my setup. First of all, we start instead in Bahrain. We want to be as economical as possible, not flying from the US to Australia, save as much fuel and protect the environment. So we start in Bahrain, an interesting track, one with a bit of drama but also a fairly sensible start. It gives the teams a chance to test the waters and find out, as Christian Horner puts it, when you pull your pants down, who is holding the biggest exploits. But then we head to a fast European section. I want to go Baku, race number 2, throw a little bit of spice in there. We want a bit of drama straight off the bat. Don't make it too easy for the Mercs. Baku can throw up a whole lot of stuff. It's a place where anything can happen and adds real drama. We follow that up as we head deeper into Europe with Austria, of course, one of my favourite Grand Prix on the calendar, followed by Hungary, Monaco, the crown in the jewel, Monza, Spa, Zandvoort and Silverstone. That would bring to a close a classic set of 8 races, added to 2 European editions, maybe France, maybe Spain, maybe Germany, something else that isn't there, completing our 10 European tracks. Then we're taken to around July time, where we head off to the Americas for Montreal and Austin, and then we take a quick break, as we always do, for the summer before we head off to Interlagos, the classic Brazil Grand Prix, as well as our extra American set, which could be my personal pick, Buenos Aires return, or Mexico City, another favourite race, especially if Sergio Perez remains in the seat. Before we finish off the season, headed for an Asian end, something we've never seen before, with Melbourne, Singapore, Hanoi, and then finishing off is of course the classic track that is Japan. I think this would make a great end. Japan is a great circuit. We've had brilliant battles on the final race of the season there before, and whilst yes, some like Brazil, it's certainly an improvement on the other option, which is currently Abu Dhabi, where we do have the likes of Abu Dhabi possibly getting a spot on the calendar if they're the invitational event, but keeping that bit of excitement. Also, Hanoi and Singapore as the penultimate races would make so much drama for the end of the season. Nobody is secure in those Grand Prix, and god damn, it's going to be tight at the end. But let's move on now to our second question of the day. Moving on then to our second question, and it's time to talk about the American outfit that is of course Haas. Günther Stein and his merry men are a merry, merry mess. And the question that keeps coming to people's lips is who in the hell will be driving for that mess of a team? Kevin Magnussen and Roman Grosjean are both on the outs, and with 8 drivers also in consideration, nobody can work out and put the puzzle together who could be driving for Gene Haas's side. So today, I'm going to dive into it and give my thoughts on each of the men tipped for that drive. Now, before we start, I have removed a few people. I'm not going to talk about Logan Sargent, as he didn't win Formula 3 and that probably counts him out of the seat. I'm not going to talk about Mick Schumacher, as I think Ferrari want more control of him and stick him in the Alfa Romeo. And I'm not going to talk particularly about Delatrese either, as I reckon there are people in Formula 2 ahead of him. So that leaves 3 categories of drivers: the current lineup, the experienced boys, and the rookie boys. So let's start off with their current men, K-Mag and Roman Grosjean. K-Mag has maybe a 50% chance of sitting in that seat. It depends on what Ferrari contracts are down and whether Sergio Perez or Nico Hülkenberg can pick up that Red Bull contract, which is possible but not likely. So Roman Grosjean, I think most agree, is going out the door at the end of this season. But K-Mag, if he can improve, if he can have a good final few races, and when drivers are under pressure they tend to perform well, he could just get a seat and one final chance for 2021 to prove his worth. If not, I reckon he might be headed out to maybe Formula E, or maybe Rally or something like that, or maybe Super Formula, because I can't see him finding a spot elsewhere on the grid, due to the quality currently without a contract. It also would make sense to get rid of Magnussen if Hülkenberg is their target. Those two do not get along, and getting rid of K-Mag would leave the door open for the talented German to return to the sport. And the talented German is where we'll move next. Nico Hülkenberg versus Sergio Perez. The 2 former teammates could be going head-to-head for the second or the first, arguably, of the 2 seats. Both bring race pace, both bring experience, both bring a high amount of quality and knowledge for the sport, but there's probably only one drive available. So who gets it? So, the pros to Sergio Perez: bank, experience, and currently holds a drive. The negatives, many would say Hülkenberg is slightly quicker, and I believe they're about the same age, so that doesn't matter. And maybe the Renault is a more useful car to gain experience from than the Racing Point is the only other thing I would say. It's tough, it's really, really tough. Personally, I'm siding with Perez. And you may say, wait, what about Danny Kvyat? He's getting booted out by Tsunoda. I'm sorry, Haas is not going to be with Kvyat. There's a Russian-American setup there that would never work. So for that reason, it's Nico versus Sergio, and my money is on the Mexican. He's got a home Grand Prix right now, another thing Hulkenberg does not have. I just think it's a better setup all round, so Sergio is going to take our experienced lad seat. But who takes the rookie spot? There's 3 men, maybe 4, maybe 5. Probably not 6, You've got Mick Schumacher, who we discounted. You've got Logan Sargent, who we discounted. You've got Delatres, who I'm also going to discount. Yes, his dad is minted and could buy him a seat, but I reckon if they have the cash from Perez, they will not need it from Delatres, and with better rookie drivers coming through, who can also bring cash, I think the Swiss is unlikely to get a drive. And those 3 men are Robert Schwartzman, Callum Ilott and Nikita Mazepin. All 3 have performed super well in their rookies and second season in the championship. Ilott is just behind Schumacher and is probably the favourite to get the seat, and actually the man that I'm going to back for a number of reasons that I'm about to explain. First of all, compared to the other 2, Ilott has an extra year's experience in the sport. I didn't think he would do so well. I saw his rookie performance here and I honestly thought, he'll be out the bin in a few years' time, we'll never see him. Instead, he has proved goddamn right that he deserves a seat. And I think for that reason, he's got to be the favourite. Being the number 2 in the championship and starting to gain a clear lead is going to help him. If he does get that spot ahead of Schwartzman, he will probably be the favourite. Add in the fact that Schwartzman has been way too inconsistent this year. This is something that I reckon they can improve over time, as if Schwartzman gets more experience, he is likely to mature more and have a more consistent set of results, unlike that of which we have seen this year. He's only 19 and no doubt his ceiling is super high, but maybe a little bit of patience is needed for the Russian. Throw in the fact that we mentioned with Kvyat and Haas, Russia and America, never the best combo, and if they're trying to get more people and more fans, maybe bringing a Russia isn't their best move. Bringing a plucky Brit might just do a bit better, and there aren't any American drivers, so that's not going to be an issue for sure. Meanwhile, my final pick, Nikita Mazepin, whilst I like him and whilst he does have cash to bring, I still don't think a Russian will be driving for the American outfit. I think Logan Sargent is the long-term favourite, but for now, Callum Ilott will be the kid taking that second seat. So for all those reasons, the conclusion that I have reached from today's episode is we're going to see a combo of Callum Ilott and Sergio Perez in that goddamn Haas. And that moves us on to our next topic. With 16 races and invitationals and Ilott and Perez in the Haas seat, it's time to look to the past. It's time to look to Williams, a legendary team in racing, who will kind of in a way be leaving, as neither Frank nor Claire will be running the team in 2021 for the first time in their history. So I thought of the question, what if Williams had never existed? They've won many titles and many constructors. How different might history look? I hope you enjoyed this little piece. Let's dive in. Welcome then, ladies and gentlemen, to the third and penultimate part of the show, where we are going to be writing alternate histories. I love to play devil's advocate and play God and play around with history, and that is exactly what this part of the show is about. We'll be taking one little factor, or in this case one very big one, out of the equation and seeing how it changes racing history. That factor, Williams. The legendary team have been taken over by Darlington Capital, and for the first time in 43 years, neither Claire Williams nor Frank Williams will be leading the team. So we're rewriting history and seeing how different it might have looked had Williams never ever entered in the first place. I hope you enjoy. This is part 1 of 4, where we're going to be going through the 70s and 80s. I hope you enjoy, and let's kick it off. So we begin in 1977. Frank Williams, after a number of failed endeavours, starts the team with his own name, Williams. They have just the one driver, Patrick Neve, and to be honest, they have a pretty awful season. They finish with no points and barely finish any races. However, this isn't about Williams, this is about what goes on elsewhere. So looking at the deals that year, Carlos Reutemann would join Ferrari and Jody Scheckter would make a surprise move to Wolff, whilst Niki Lauda would take his second title in 1977. Not much impact as of yet, but give it just a few years and the history timeline is going to quickly start to change. As we move on to 1978, Niki Lauda leaves Ferrari headed to Brabham. Youngster Gilles Villeneuve is signed as his replacement, meanwhile Ronnie Peterson joins Lotus. And it's his teammate that takes the title, Mario Andretti becoming the only American in history and since that date to win the F1 title. but the Lotus domination days were coming to an end. And as we move on to 1979, the driver market makes another shift. Jody Scheckter becomes a Ferrari driver, replacing the outgoing Carlos Reutemann, who is headed to Lotus to replace the tragic death of Ronnie Peterson. It wasn't the only exciting news though, as we see the arrival of future world champion Nelson Piquet at the Team Brabham. But it's the South African that comes out on top. Jody Scheckter takes his first and only title with Ferrari, their last until the year 2000. In the year 1980, most of the top teams stayed the same, with the only major move being young Frenchman Alain Prost signing for McLaren. It would have been an Alan Jones win, but with no Williams in the history line, Nelson Piquet takes his first F1 title a year earlier with Brabham. The Brazilian is quickly becoming a top talent. 1981, on the other hand, sees a lot of changes. Prost leads for Renault after just 1 year with McLaren due to a number of disputes. Meanwhile, former top teams Lotus and Ferrari switch up their lineups, with Didier Pironi becoming Villeneuve's new partner and Elio De Angelis replacing 1978 world champion Andretti at Lotus. Despite this, nobody can stop Piquet, who wins back-to-back titles with Brabham in the 1981 season. 1982 would see the shock return of Niki Lauda to Formula 1, with the Austrian signing with the British team McLaren. In other driver news, Nigel Mansell would become a Lotus driver, whilst Patrese would partner Piquet at Brabham. But the title winner was a shock one. Take Williams' Keke Rosberg out of the equation, and the title instead goes to the old Brit John Watson, winning his first and only F1 title in a shock victory over McLaren teammate Niki Lauda and Ligier driver Jacques Laffite. 1983, on the other hand, saw little change. Ferrari were the only big switches, signing an all-new lineup of René Arnoux and Patrick Tambay in a double French setup. Meanwhile, Jacques Laffite, after an argument with Ligier bosses, would sign for Renault, but nobody could stop Nelson Piquet from taking his third title with the Brabham team. 1984, on the other hand, was an exciting year for the driver market. Alain Prost would set off a chain reaction by leaving Renault for McLaren. Renault in turn would sign Ferrari driver Patrick Tambay, with Michele Alboreto headed to Ferrari in turn. We would also see the debut of future world champion Ayrton Senna at Toleman, but the world championship went to an old guard. Niki Lauda won his third and last title by 1 point over his McLaren teammate Alain Prost. In 1985, after a successful debut season with Toleman, young Brazilian Ayrton Senna would be signed up by Lotus. This would cause yet another set of chain reactions, with the Brit Nigel Mansell dropped to a struggling Arrow side, with Elio De Angelis preferred by the Lotus garage. Meanwhile, Ferrari would sign yet another new driver, with Swede Stefan Johansson joining La Scuderia. It was Alain Prost that would take the title, winning his first world championship in the 1985 season with a McLaren team that had finally begun to click. And 1986 was pretty similar. Although McLaren would lose the services of Niki Lauda, they did what they do best and signed another world champion, bringing in the Brazilian Nelson Piquet. This is because with no Williams and Brabham starting to sink down the table, he needed a car that could bring him his fourth world championship. However, it wasn't as enough. With the Brazilian unused to the car and Prost very much in favour, the Frenchman would take his second world championship in back-to-back seasons. Then finally, for this episode, in 1987, McLaren retained their driver lineup, Austrian Gerhard Berger would sign for Ferrari in yet another switch, and Benetton would have a new pair of drivers in Nigel Mansell and Stefan Johansson. However, without Williams and no Piquet in the picture, McLaren having a poor year, Ayrton Senna would win his first title a year earlier with Lotus in a surprise move that would set off an exciting chain of events over the next 5 to 6 years. But that is well finished off for today's What If. I hope you've enjoyed this little segment. I've loved playing around with history. I can't wait to bring you part 2 next week. Let's head back to the action live. It's time for Twitter Trash. So then, after that quick segment, which I really hope you loved, because I'm a huge fan of playing devil's advocate and what could have happened. Yes, we will have 3 more parts. That says stay loaded. We have 90s, 1000s and 10s still to come there. It's time to do Twitter trash. Each episode will finish off with this section, diving into a few tweets that I've seen. Now, a quick note, nothing from the Russian Grand Prix. This was all taken pre that, as I'm recording before I actually know the result. So here we go. First of all, we have Strat 2. Bottas does not get as much credit as he deserves. Okay, yes, he's not as good as Lewis, but he's still a very quick driver who challenges him. For sure, not his race, but pole position is the place to be. Now, second part of that tweet, a little bit confusing. I think they're talking about Russia, where obviously pole is the best spot to be, although some would argue otherwise. You've seen the race, so you can let me know, or future me could let me know. Future me could also make sure that you go and subscribe, but Bottas doesn't get the credit that he deserves. I completely agree with this. Now, he's no Rosberg, and he's no Hamilton, and he's not an Alonso or anything like that, or even like a Raikkonen. I don't think he's quite to their abilities, but I think he gets a lot of shit. I think he is a quality driver. Think back to his Williams days. He jumped straight from Formula 3 to F1, and did pretty damn well. So I think, all things considered, you have to respect him. Lewis is the only teammate he's lost to. He's beaten the legendary Pastor Maldonado, which is no easy feat. He also beat Felipe Massa 2 years in a row, which is actually pretty impressive. They're in equal cars, both competitive drivers. Massa was so close to being a world champion in 08. You have to consider, for a kid in his second year, that's pretty damn good. He's been rapid and, frankly, he's helped assist in the domination of Mercedes. He's a clear professional. Yes, Hamilton, and I love and respect Hamilton for all the stuff that he does outside the sport, but Bottas is an immaculate professional, and you cannot deny it. Week in, week out, he turns up, does the business. He's smooth, he's quick, and I think he's an awesome driver who gets a lot of shit. And I think if you went to somewhere like a Renault or a McLaren, you would truly see how good the man just is. Our second tweet though, Guy, which the quote is Alex Albon, should be nowhere near that Red Bull seat. Put someone like Hülkenberg in it and you will see. This I disagree with, and I said this on my podcast the other week. Alex Albon is the man for Red Bull, and trust me on this, Alex Albon is the man for Red Bull for this reason. The issue that they've had is that no top driver wants to go near or head-to-head against Verstappen. It's Team Max right now, there's no doubt in that, it's Team Max. So for that reason, being the teammate is a tough job. Ricciardo struggled, Gasly struggled, and Albon is actually doing an alright job. He's keeping good pace. Granted, he's not as good as some other drivers. Gasly is a better driver in miles, Ricciardo is a better driver, Hülkenberg's probably better than him, but he fits really well. He's young, he's got a lot of time in his hands, he has a good relationship with Max, and he's bringing in consistent results. I think if he continues to do well, there is no reason, if Red Bull became a competitive car, he couldn't do what the likes of Bottas or Barrichello are doing now. So for that reason, I back the lad, and I stand by this. Albon is the best man right now for the Red Bull seat. Yuki Tsunoda might be in a few years, or Liam Lawson, but for now, Alex is their best bet. He knows the team well, he's a solid driver, consistent week in, week out, a great guy. There's no losing in my eyes. Yes, he's not as quick as Max, but that's never gonna be the case. Max is quicker than Lewis, arguably, so there's no way that anyone can beat him. So I think someone like Alex creates a happy balance in the team, rather than creating a team where there's inter-arguments between the drivers. For that reason, don't stick Hülkenberg near the seat, he's 33, stick Albon, stay with use, have faith in Alex. And finally, the favouritism is clear as day. Stroll had a crash and Perez suffers from it. And that's right, Daddy Stroll owns the team. This is talking about the incident that's happened over the last week. Lance Stroll has been given new parts before Sergio Perez, despite the fact that Lance crashed out in the Mugello Grand Prix, losing the parts that Perez would have got. And some are saying that this is unfair. However, I disagree. I think they're quite within their rights to give it to Lance. Now, no doubt there is a bit of favouritism in that team towards Lance. However, it wasn't his fault. His tyre blew out. he was a passenger in that situation. Just like Kvyat at Silverstone, nothing he can do about the situation. He is a dead man walking in that. Nothing he can do. Nothing he can do. He just had to sit there and take the hit as he goes through the corner and piles into the wall. And as the #1 driver in the team right now, and the man that's staying on at the team, I just don't think it's unfair. I back it. I think it's the right decision. Yes, they're making clear guidelines who is #1, but I think it's the right call. He's ahead on points. He's staying at the team. He was originally the man that was given to it, and he was unfairly taken away because of the crash that was no way his fault. So for all those reasons combined, yes, Perez no doubt deserves it, but for that reason, I don't think that Lance doesn't deserve it. And that is where we'll finish off the first ever episode of the F1 show. I hope you guys have enjoyed, ladies and gentlemen. I'm really excited to see how this does. And over the next year or so, I hope to get up to about 30 to 40 episodes with you guys. Other than that, I hope you have enjoyed. I will see you that is not English, back next week for another episode. Until then, peace!